We are live. Welcome to Walkouts and Knockouts, brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We have the Knuckle Bros, the Beard Brothers, whatever you want to call us. We got Ariel, we got Johnathan. How are you doing today, my man?
I'm good, brother. I'm so excited. This has got to be probably the biggest fight card in a little while. I can't wait for tonight. We got 3 title fights on deck, bunch of bangers up and down the card. I don't know what more you can ask for from a fight card, my man.
Yeah, this is probably one of the deepest fight cards. I think if you look into it, this UFC 100 and 200 are probably one of top 3 as far as biggest cards. And with all these prospects on the undercard as well, this could make out to be one of the biggest cards. Looking back in history, when we see who was on this card, this could be one of the biggest cards moving forward. I'm excited about this card. I woke up at 9 o'clock and I decided to go back to sleep so the card can come a little bit quicker. But massive fights on this card. Starting with the main event, we have Israel Adesanya aiming to become the 5th double champion in UFC history, taking on the Polish Jan Blachowicz. Epic main event. Before that, we got the co-main, Megan Anderson challenging Amanda Nunez, the greatest female athlete of all time. That's going to be a fun fight. I'm not sure if Anderson has a chance, but that's a fun one as well. And probably the fight that has the most heat on it, Petr Yan making his first title defense against Aljamain Sterling coming out of that Matt Serra camp. That's going to be a really fun fight, a good clash of styles. But the rest of this card is even just as stacked. We have Islam Makhachev, the Khabib 2.0, taking on the heavy-handed Drew Dober, who's been in UFC for a long time, paid his dues, and now he's working up to become one of those higher-ranked fighters in that lightweight division. Before that, to kickstart the pay-per-view, Alexander Rakic taking on Thiago Moises Santos.
What a fight.
Two guys with knockout power coming in, taking on that fight. And then even in the prelims are great. Headlined by Casey Kenny taking on Dominick Cruz. Cruz coming off that loss against Henry Cejudo, which might have been, he complained that it was an early stoppage. He was getting back up when he was getting stopped. So if that fight stopped a couple seconds ago, I might have agreed more than when it was actually stopped because he was making me back up. But, Dominick Cruz, one of the smartest guys in mixed martial arts. He has just such a brain. It's a great card. And even, before that, another title challenger who just recently fought for the title, Joseph Benavidez taking on Askar Askarov. We have so many great fights on this card. It's going to be it's just going to be a banger. It's going to be a banger. We're about an hour and a half from kickoff from the UFC show. So let's get right into it. Let's start with this main event. Israel Adesanya, he's moving up from middleweight, 185-pound division champ, 20-0, undefeated. I think he's 75-5 as a kickboxer and 10-0 as a boxer. So dude is an absolute combat, veteran. He's been doing it all, but he's taking on probably one of his biggest challenges with the Polish power of Jan Blachowicz. Getting into the story a little bit, Jan has that crazy story with the rope where he found a dude who hung himself in the woods, and he was 1-4 over a course of 5 fights in his career until he found that rope. 8-1 since he's been touching that rope of the dead man. And Izzy, coming on 20-0, he's looking to become a double champ. Is he looking to go up to heavyweight and face John Jones after that? That's going to be, what we're going to be guessing to see. So let's get into this fight, Ariel. What did you see, scouting these two fighters? How did you feel like this fight is going to go down? And what did you see is going to happen?
So first of all, I think it's a super interesting matchup. Obviously, when you've got two champions going at it, that's going to be a big fight, almost no matter who's on it. But I mean, Izzy Adesanya has a claim to be perhaps maybe the best fighter currently fighting. I know Khabib would have something to say about that, but he's just so electric. He reminds of, prime Anderson Silva, his precision, his accuracy, the speed, and the variety in the strikes that he throws. He's just such an experienced, such a good stand-up fighter. Jan Blachowicz is big. He's powerful. He's mean. He looks like he's, can knock your head off with one shot. I think it's kind of an interesting stylistic clash because Izzy is pretty malleable in that he can, be the fighter who initiates the action as well as the fighter who likes to counter, which I think he's actually a little bit more comfortable doing. And that to me feels like a bad matchup for Jan Blachowicz because Jan likes to go first. And he will lead a lot of the action. And I just think he's not quick enough to get to Izzy. It's going to, if he connects, he can put this fight to bed early. or at any point in the fight. But that's what it's going to come down to is, can Jan Blachowicz connect? Is he fast enough to hit Izzy, on the chin and get there before Izzy's able to counter? Because Israel Adesanya is so quick and he's so experienced standing up. Jan might have to take this fight to the ground to, give himself the best chance at winning, because if there is a weakness in Adesanya's game, it might be the takedown defense. I'm not ready to say that it's poor, but we know where he wants to keep the fight. And if he is able to, stay at distance where he utilizes his range so well, and that speed advantage, it's going to be a dangerous fight for Jan Blachowicz.
Yeah, he's coming in, and the main question of this fight and what's going to be answered on Saturday, and we're also going to do our picks at the end of the card. We're going to give our full card picks, break predictions, get into some betting picks at the end of it as well. And so, make sure you guys stay tuned for that. But what's the biggest question for this fight is, what's more dangerous, the speed and the accuracy of Israel Adesanya or the power and the brute strength of Jan Blachowicz? And, comparing this fight, you almost think of it like a jaguar versus a crocodile, right? The jaguar is going to come in, he's going to be stealthy, he's going to creep around, and he's going to go ahead and try to work his way around and give himself the best angle to strike. Whilst the alligator, he kind of sits there, he's a little more stout, and he'll go with brute strength. And I mean, who wins that fight most of the time? The cheater actually wins that fight. And, when you look at it, that the big cats do get those wins. So getting into hinting into the predictions later, but as far as this fight goes, Jan Blachowicz, he's a guy that'll throw a lot of leg kicks. He loves that body kick. He destroyed Dominick Reyes with that body kick. He left a foot imprint on his chest before he broke his nose. He already had broke his ribs, and so that was just one of his main weapons. But we saw that during that fight, one of the shots that Dominick Reyes connected on was a straight right down the pipe during that leg kick, and it rocked Jan. And we've noticed, like with the fight with Thiago Santos, who was also on this card, that left hook is something that's a problem as well. He has a weakness to that left hook. And like you said, Adesanya is one of these guys that's so malleable. It's like he can do anything on the feet. He's a cheat code in the video game because he can do everything. He can do everything as well as southpaw as he does in orthodox. He'll use his hands. He'll use his legs. He'll use the jab. What he did against Costa was an excellent game plan. Starting low with those leg kicks, chopping him down, and then going up top with the high kick, cracking him, making him bleed, and then knowing exactly that left hook put him out. You know what I mean? Got him down. So this is a fight that's going to be so interesting to see. I feel like this fight's going to be one that's going to go a little bit deeper because Israel's going to take his time with this fight. He's going to work on it. He doesn't want to go in and get cracked. Early in the Romero fight, the one exciting moment in that fight was when Izzy decided to engage and Yoel cracked him. Now, Izzy was like, okay, if this is the game he's going to play, he's going to stand here and he's just going to wait for me to go in him. I'm not going to go at him. I'm just going to dance around him and do what I have to do. And Jan already said that he wants to clinch with Israel Adesanya, which means he's going to be pressing the fight, which means he's going to be leaving himself open to counter. So I do like the challenge that Jan Blachowicz brings to this fight because of his power, because of the clinch ability, and it is a smaller cage that they're fighting in the UFC Apex as well, right. So that's a little bit of a factor. But Israel Adesanya is coming in, greatest striker, if not the greatest striker, one of the greatest strikers of all time in the UFC, and it's going to be interesting to see if he loses his zero this Saturday.
Something to consider with regards to Blachowicz wanting to turn this, kind of muck the fight up and turn it into a little bit, a fight that's fought at closer range, is that in order for Jan to get into that range, he's going to have to walk through Adesanya's striking range, which is extremely dangerous. A guy like Adesanya, which, we both mentioned, he's extremely malleable, can fight as, can be the lead guy in the exchanges, or he can sit back and counter depending on the distance that the fight is being had at. That's what you're able to do when you have a wealth of experience and a striking base to the level that Izzy does. You've mentioned the amount of amateur and pro fights that he has, both in kickboxing, boxing. Just you can see the difference between him and a guy like Blachowicz in the fluidity and the comfortability, the creativity that Izzy brings when he's on the feet. And so in order for Jan to get in there, he's going to have to walk through some shots, and he's also the slower guy, like we mentioned. So it's going to be extremely dangerous. There's going to be some scary moments for Jan, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy's coming in, and he has the perfect ability to strike. And for Jan to go into that range and try to get into Adesanya's range. We got to remember, Adesanya, although it not be as big of an advantage as it would be in like the middleweight division, he still has a slight height advantage, and he still has a slight, reach advantage. So he's coming in, he still has the size factor, which makes him one of the most, unique fighters, as which he can fight at 185 and he can move up to heavyweight because he has the frame to put on the muscle. So, we'll see if that's something he wants to move on in the future. But this is one of these fights that I feel is just going to be us seeing Adesanya work a little bit more, and just wear him down. So we're going to get into our predictions, like we said, a little bit later. Do you have anything else you want to add on to this fight?
Just that, I kind of drew the comparison between Anderson Silva and Izzy Adesanya. Something that Anderson Silva did during his career, especially in the prime of his career, is he would, he cleaned out the 185-pound division, moved up to 205, and was still knocking guys out. Why is he able to do that? Because like Izzy, he might not be the most powerful guy, especially not at 205, right? There's a lot of guys that hit harder than Izzy's going to be able to hit, but it doesn't matter as much when you're able to put your shots, your punches, your kicks in the exact right spot. All you need precision. I think was it Connor that said, or somebody said that precision beats power every single time. And that is so true. If you can put if Jan comes in and tries to close the distance and initiate the clinch, if Izzy puts a straight right on his chin, it doesn't even have to be like a full power shot to hurt Jan. And so it's going to be a really, really interesting chess match to see how does Jan close that distance.
Yeah, close that distance without getting hurt, right? Without getting striked. So, that's going to be an epic main event. In the like we said, in the co-main event, we have the greatest of all time as far as women mixed martial artists. I was just thinking about this last night. I wonder who would win, the Joan of Arc or Amanda Nunez? Like, who would actually be a more, dominating female presence? But the greatest of all time, she's the former or current bantamweight and featherweight UFC champion, and she's defending her featherweight belt against an actual true featherweight in Megan Anderson, former Invicta champion. So she does have championship experience in another organization. Nunez right now 11-fight win streak. Last 4 of Megan Anderson's fights actually ended in round 1. So it's going to be curious to see how she goes 5 rounds when recently her fights have actually only been going 1 round. And if you look at all the stats across the board, Nunez has this striking advantage and stats advantage in all the striking and all the grappling. So what this fight reminds me of is kind of more what her against Jermaine Durandamy looked like, right? When she's taking on this long, dangerous striker, because Anderson does have good striking, but she has this multifaceted part of her game where if Nunez wants to, she can take you down now. Earlier part of her career, she wasn't as proficient at doing that, but she showed against the GDR fight and against the Felicia Spencer fight that she can just take you down when she wants to. And she'll use her striking to set up her takedowns very, very well. We know her as a knockout artist, but now she's becoming a much better takedown artist as well, and just becoming a very dominant champion to where statistically and achievement-wise, she is the greatest athlete or the greatest accomplished UFC fighter of all time. There's no doubting that. But the only asterisk was that is her level of competition. She's not fighting the same level, as a Khabib or a John Jones or a GSP. So, that's the only thing that can take away from her. But she really is one of the most accomplished UFC athletes. But getting into Megan Anderson, she does bring a different kind of challenge to this fight because she's really long. She's 6 feet tall, which is huge, even for the males featherweight division. Max Holloway is like what, 5'10"?
Yeah,
so
she's huge.
She's taller than Max Holloway. She's taller than Connor, taller than Dustin. Yeah, she's taller than DC. So, and he fights a heavyweight. So, she does bring a unique challenge. And I think for her, if she's able to keep that jab out there, right, keep that working and using her range as her advantage and just not try to overextend herself to where she put herself in Nunez range, she actually might have a little bit better of a shot than most people think. But the only problem with that is that she just has no ground game. She offers nothing off of her back. She's able to set up submissions, but when you're going against somebody like Nunez, they're going to see that coming from a mile away. So she's not going to be able to lock up a triangle or get an arm bar or anything like that. So, this fight, Amanda Nunez, I feel like she's just going to take her down. She's going to ground and pound her. And I don't see this fight going the distance, honestly. How do you feel about this fight?
This one's kind of easy to break down, or maybe hard, depending on how you look at it, because like you hit on everything, man. It's a tough fight for Megan Anderson. I don't think she's quite at the level of Amanda Nunez. Megan Anderson, I think, has lost 2 of her last 4 or 5 fights. She has losses to Holly Holm and Felicia Spencer recently,
Right.
whom Amanda Nunez defeated, right?
Destroyed.
Destroyed, like annihilated. And so I think that Amanda Nunez is just, again, similar to the last fight that we touched on, from a technical standpoint, is quite a few levels above Megan Anderson. Megan has the size advantage. She's tall, like you said. She's big. She can hit hard, but I just don't think she's going to be able to deal with everything that Amanda Nunez offers in a fight. I think Amanda, she has the option, if she chooses, if she feels like the fight isn't going great on the feet, she can take the fight to the ground, and she has a huge, huge advantage over Megan Anderson down there. And so, Megan Anderson's enormous underdog for a reason there. It's going to be a really, really tough fight. This one feels like probably the safest fight to pick. And given that we're both kind of seem to be going in that direction, watch Megan Anderson pull off the upset and make us look real stupid on our first show.
She's gonna ruin 99% of all parlays if she if she ends up starting Nunez, and she's gonna have a lot of people coming for her. But let's get into the third title fight. Crazy to even say that. The third title fight on this card. This is probably the one that has the most heat, because Aljamain Sterling has deserved this fight for a good while now, right? As soon as he finished Corey Sandhagen, he deserved this title shot. But they gave Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo because Aldo, I watched that fight. I thought he beat Moraes. I really did think he beat Moraes in that fight. And what's up, Samir? And what's up, Abdel?
We'll get to those.
Yeah, we're gonna get into our underdog picks. But this was a fight that Sterling's been clamoring for, right? And on Twitter, on everything, they gave Petr Yan the fight against Jose Aldo. And he destroyed Jose Aldo.
That was really that was when I first took notice of Petr Yan. I was like, okay, this dude is for real, for real.
Actually, I understand Uriah Faber was past his prime, but what he did to Uriah Faber, dude, he knocked him down like multiple times in a round, which is that just shows how much more dominant you are as a striker. So if he just kind of beat Faber, I would have been like, all right, he's a good guy, he's a good prospect.
He knocked him out with a head kick, right? That was that was bad.
He knocked him down 3 times with his hands, and then knocked him out with a head kick. So I don't think Uriah Faber has fought since. No, he did fight. I think he fought Ricky Martin or Ricky Martinez, something like Ricky Simone. Ricky Martin, right?
Poor Ricky Martin.
Right. Ricky Simone. So Aljo deserved this fight. He finally gets it. It gets moved because of some personal problems from Petr Yan, which Aljo thinks is him just wanting more time for this fight, which is curious because if you look at Petr Yan's path to the title, it has been a bunch of strikers. You know what I mean? The last guy that he actually grappled with was Magomed Magomedov, and he lost that fight in a split decision, but he still lost that fight. So I think this is, Aljamain Sterling's coming in as a NCAA 2-time champion, right? He has a great wrestling background, and he's also really good with his kicks. He's good to keep range. He keeps range with his kicks, and then he'll get in close and he'll fake his kicks and then set up takedowns, right? Mm-hmm. Because if you're backed up against the cage, you can't duck a high kick, right? You have to cover up. So once they cover up, he just goes low and he gets that takedown. Now Petr Yan's coming to like we said, one of the most dangerous strikers, probably one of the most guys with the most power in the 135-pound division as far as straight boxing goes. But as far as Aljamain Sterling, he has a little more diversity to his game where he has it on the feet and he has it on the legs. How did you see this one going?
I think he made some really good points about, Petr Yan's boxing. His hands are insanely fast. But Aljamain Sterling has what I think is a more varied overall arsenal. He does a lot more with the kicks, and just generally his creativity is on a different kind of level than Petr Yan. The question is 2 questions. Question 1 is that creativity enough of an advantage as compared to the boxing that Petr Yan has, because his hands are serious. The other question to me is, actually I have 3 questions. The other question to me is Aljamain Sterling going to be able to set up the takedown and take the fight to the ground? Because that's where he would seem to have an advantage. Like you said, he has the wrestling experience. He's got that pedigree. But, in scouting some of Aljamain Sterling's fights, what I kind of kept thinking to myself was, while I'm impressed with everything that he can do on the feet and the all-around arsenal that he's got, the creativity, especially, like I said, I don't feel like his boxing defense is that good. I feel like he gets hit a good amount. Was it his last fight against Corey Sandhagen?
That one he starched him.
I don't know if it was that fight. One of his last couple of fights it might have been the Pedro Munoz fight, actually, the one where he won the unanimous decision. That was a really close fight, I think.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, that was the one. And he got hit a lot in that fight. And I felt like his boxing defense wasn't ideal, right? Like he's got his hands out a lot as opposed to having a tight guard where he's protecting his head and moving, the head movement is just okay. So I feel like that's an area where that might come back to haunt him, because we talked about Petr Yan's hands being serious. Those things have detonators on them. They're dangerous. And so again, the question with this fight is, how does Aljamain Sterling do on the feet? Is he able to mix it up enough to take the fight to the ground? And if not, again, can he survive Petr Yan's bombs of his hands? Because it's really dangerous if Petr Yan can muck up the fight and get inside and kind of, dirty box it a little bit. I think he's got a little bit of an advantage in the stand-up due to the technical proficiency in his hands, but it's a really interesting matchup. Like you said, it's a very hyped fight, and both guys are really good fighters. And that might be the fight I'm most excited for outside of the Adesanya fight.
Yeah. That's probably, like we said, that's the one that has the most heat. Petr Yan has never been finished, so it's going to be interesting to see if Aljo even gets it on the ground, if he's able to finish him. And talking about that last fight against Pedro Munoz, Aljamain Sterling landed 174 strikes. Munoz landed 105. So he did take a lot of damage while dishing it out, but that's the most he's ever been hit in any of his fights. The last fight before that, 24 strikes absorbed. Before that, 12. Before that, 27. And his other highest would be 39. So, Pedro Munoz is one of those guys with a really good striking diversity, but he does a lot of kickboxing as well. Go ahead.
Something to consider, though. Again, Petr Yan is a pretty high output guy. Like, he'll be in your face and he'll be coming at you all fights. So that's why I brought that point up, is I feel like this fight could kind of resemble that fight, at least in terms of Aljo's opponent being a guy who's not afraid to initiate the action, come at him, and really throw a lot at him, which is why, I kind of question the boxing defense a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, 100%. And he's been knocked out before. You know what I mean? He's a guy that's been knocked out before. So with somebody that has the power of Petr Yan, it doesn't take many. You know what I mean? It does not take many. And it being go ahead.
It only takes one.
It only takes one, exactly. So, if he only lands that one, even if it's the first round, second round, fourth round, we've seen that he was able to put Aldo out late. He finished Aldo out late. And that was a fight where they were going back and forth. So that's going to be a great fight. Like we said, we'll get into predictions later in the card. But let's get on to another one of the phenomenal fights on this card. Islam Makhachev coming back. He's been out for 17 months, so he's been out for a while. And, he's coming back. He's taking on a tough challenge in the 15th ranked Drew Dober. Now, interesting, facet coming into this fight. All of Dober's last 3 losses have actually come by sub. So it's interesting that he's going up against a grappler, and all the grappling advantage it goes to Makhachev. Obviously, he has the best grappling. Probably one of the best, maybe not Charles Oliveira, in the lightweight division. How do you see this one going? Or it could be if he's not.
They're training partners, though. So yeah, dude, I think that's an amazing fight. Makhachev has an insane amount of just grappling, a wealth of grappling experience. He's a Sambo champion, much like his boy Khabib. When he gets the fight to the ground, it's like having a 150-pound weighted blanket on top of you, and the weighted blanket has legs and punches you in the face. Like, it's just, it's like having a bear on top of you. I've been there in the gym, with bigger dudes on top of you. You feel like a fish out of water if they're just at such a higher level than you're at. And so, his fight versus Davis Ramos, I think it was, where he finished it with just ferocious ground and pound. Like, he's a dangerous dude. He can finish you again. It can be a KO, TKO, where he finishes you with that ground and pound. He can tap you. He submitted Cajun Johnson, actually, a guy that I've trained with a couple fights ago in the first round via armbar. So he's got a lot of different weapons. He's got power on the feet. He's really developed on the feet as well. He's a dangerous fighter, but Drew Dober, man, this dude has come such a long way. I remember seeing him fight actually an ex-training partner of mine, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, in 2016. and he was getting popped. You know, he got taken down and finished via rear naked choke in that fight. Since then, though, he's won 6 out of 7, right? And he's looked so much better. I feel like with him, the kind of like the whole mental aspect of fighting has caught up to the physical tools that he has. And now you just see a fighter who knows what he's doing in there. He's confident in his abilities. He's a smarter fighter than he was earlier in his career. He's got a lot of power. He's built like a, you know, his quads. He's got tree trunks for quads.
Mm-hmm.
That dude kicks so hard. The stand-up has always been really good with Drew Dober. He's always been a solid kickboxer. And I think this is a really, really interesting fight. This will really tell us exactly where Islam Makhachev is and how ready is he to contend legitimately for the lightweight title.
Yeah, because if he's unable to get past a dangerous striker like Drew Dober, then he's not ready for the Paul Felders, the Justin Gaethjes, or any of those guys, right? And one of the guys that Drew Dober trains with is Justin Gaethje. He does train at that Elevation Fight Team, so he's up there with a lot of experience. We know that his cardio is going to be good. This is an interesting matchup because it's southpaw versus southpaw as well. You know, two guys with the right hand as their main going forward. So it's going to be interesting to see how that works. As far as the striking of Drew Dober, though, he's one of these guys that are so big. He's kind of like a Dustin Poirier as far as size goes, because he's just so wide. He has that wide back where you get that punching power from, and he has that strong base as well. And he's a little more fresh than Poirier because he doesn't have the damage. You know what I mean? You know, Poirier had the hip surgery and stuff like that. But Dober is one of these guys that has a lot of power. He's a former welterweight. He's really mastered this lightweight run, though, and he's showing that he's a lot more dangerous here. So like you said, this is a perfect testing for both of these guys, because if Islam can show that he can beat a striker like Drew Dober, this will remind me of like when Khabib beat Barbosa, right? And it was like, okay, Barbosa is one of the greatest strikers, and yeah, we did talk about that with young assassin. So if you'll
get our predictions, get our predictions at the end of the show, though. So
we still have that. But when Khabib beat Barbosa, a guy that had, before the Khabib fight, he had the best stand-up takedown defense, right? And he was a great striker. He had his kicks are just phenomenal. He's just a great striker. And what did he do to Barbosa? He destroyed him, right? He absolutely murked him. Barbosa just had fear in his eyes when he's on the ground. It's like you said, when it's wrestling with these guys, it's like you're drowning. They don't only keep their weight on top of you, but they know, hey, I'm going to pull your wrist. I'm going to lean my weight on this side. You know, they're going to control you every single part. They're going to know what you need to do to escape and stop it before it even happens. So it's going to be a really, really exciting matchup. Islam has pretty decent stand-up as well. He has good kicks. So it's going to be fun to see if Islam is actually Khabib 2.0, or if he still needs a little more work on his game before heading up in the top of the lightweight division. Now, to open this card, dude.
Oh, my goodness.
Thiago Santos taking out Alexander Rakic. Rakic has 7 wins by round 1 knockout. 8 out of 9 of Santos's fights have came by knockout. So these guys are just known for knockouts. And, it's not like a Derek Lewis versus, Francis Ngannou, where both guys are going to be too scared. These guys throw heat, and they'll throw a little risk into it as well. Rakic is a little bit younger, right? He's 29. He's kind of almost one of these new age guys that are coming up. And that would be a fun fight. Can you imagine Rakic versus Adesanya, or Santos versus Adesanya in the light heavyweight belt? That would be insane. But let's get into this fight a little bit. How do you feel this one's going to go down?
I feel like, you touched on it, and you made a really good point in that both of these dudes fire with bad intentions. They're both looking to keep the fight on the feet most of the time. And so it's just a banger. There's a reason they put this fight first on the card, right? I would be pretty shocked if that fight went to decision, which means it's obviously going to go to decision. But, conventionally speaking, I don't think that fight goes to decision. I think these dudes are going to be coming after each other. And Thiago Santos, he's lost his last 2 fights. First of all, the John Jones fight, that shit was impressive, because he was fighting on one leg. His knee, he tore or messed up something in his knee. I don't remember what specifically it was, but you could see during the fight, right? Like he wobbled on it a few times. He wasn't moving the same, and he was still trying to take John Jones's whole ass head off. Like he was trying to
on one leg.
Him. Yeah, that was crazy. And so I think that was a split decision win, right? Like one of the judges, I think, gave that to Thiago Santos.
You could be right. Let me look that up right now.
I've got a feeling one of the judges gave that to Thiago Santos. Let me know. But Yeah, that was super impressive. And so this is a fight with two guys that, prefer to have the fight on the feet. They're both highly aggressive. And, Rakic is just built like a beast. And, Thiago looks like he can kill you too. He's got a ton of power. That's a crazy fight. I actually really, that fight can go either way. I think that's one of the closest fights on the card in terms of the betting odds. I think they're both like right around even money, maybe give or take a little bit. I don't remember, but that's a tough fight to pick, but it should be a really good one. Thiago Santos needs to get the win though, because he's riding a 2-fight losing streak, and in the UFC that shit gets you cut sometimes. So you need to get a W.
Yeah, he definitely does. And yeah, Song Yadong only being 24, dude. He's been in the UFC so many fights already. We'll get into a little bit of that fight a little bit later, but as far as Rakic, he showed that he's not only a great striker, but he took down Anthony Smith. You know what I mean? He was able to take him down, and a guy that's great at submissions, great off his back, was kind of held, hopeless. You know what I mean? He didn't really have much to go. And like you said about Santos, it was a split decision. So one of the judges gave it to Thiago Santos, and that's
on one leg against John Jones.
Yeah, exactly. On one leg against potentially the greatest of all time, depending on where you have him ranked. So Santos is coming in. I feel like he's finally healthy. His last fight he lost, but he had his opponent hurt early. He just didn't really finish it off, and he kind of blew all of his steam. So now this being a 3-round fight, it's going to be interesting to see which one of these guys imposes their power more. I mean, Santos is coming in, dude. It's hard to
try to kill him.
Yeah, he's going to come in. You notice like every fight against the Jan Blachowicz, he's the last guy that actually beat Jan. And Jan's currently the lightweight champion. Or light heavyweight champion. Yeah, knocked him out in 3rd round with that left hook, which I, get into the predictions we'll talk about later. But Santos is coming in. He has great striking. He has pretty good takedown defense as well. And, he's a Brazilian. So he has that good Brazilian jiu-jitsu background, as always. You know what I mean? So I feel like this is a fight where we're just going to see a lot of fireworks. We're going to see a lot of two guys get popped. I don't see this one going the distance. I don't think you do either. But we'll get into predictions a little bit later. But let's get into that feature prelim because, man, even the prelims on this card are just great. We have Dominick, the Dominator Cruz, taking on Casey Kenny. Both of these guys have pretty phenomenal records. Right now, 22-3 for Cruz and then 16-2-1 for Kenny. So how do you feel like this one's going to go down?
This is a tough one. So Casey Kenny showed over the course of his last few fights that like that left kick, from the southpaw stance is so ferocious. He destroyed Haley Alatang with that kick. And by the way, that dude is tough as nails because he ate so many kicks to the midsection and just kept coming forward. But yeah, that's a weapon that'll slow down a guy, especially if I think in this fight, it's going to be key for him to look to throw that to the legs, right? Because Dominick Cruz loves to move around, get in and out, and cut all these weird angles. He's extremely bouncy and unorthodox. It's hard to find a training partner that kind of mimics him effectively. And so if you're Kenny in this fight, you're looking to chop those legs down. Every time he gets in, chop those legs down. Dominick Cruz, historically, except for maybe in like the Takeya Mizugaki fight, doesn't come out and just absolutely destroy dudes. He doesn't usually starch dudes in the first round. And so if he hasn't shown to historically have that one punch knockout power, you can afford to take a couple of shots if you can ensure that you're getting that leg kick off and you're throwing it at Cruz's, his calf, his thigh area. Try to take away some of the movement and then go to work. Casey Kenny has a lot of power. He's a powerful dude. For Dominick Cruz, again, it's going to be really important to get in and out and avoid those kicks. That's a tough fight to pick, though. It's a really tough fight to pick. I thought, you mentioned earlier that the Dominick Cruz fight against Henry Cejudo was his last fight. That was his only fight in the last, 4 years, I believe. He hasn't fought in a really long time, save for that one fight, which, again, I think that fight was probably stopped a little bit early. Mm-hmm. Like you said, he was getting back up when that fight was called off, although he had been, pretty objectively losing that fight up until that point. You got to give the guy a chance. So I don't really know if this is as bad a matchup as maybe the betting odds indicate. I think the odds have Kenny as the favorite. I think Cruz has a real chance here. I really do.
Yeah, it's going to be, he's one of these guys that he's been in the fight game for so long, but he's still really not that old. He's only 35 years old, which in MMA isn't that old, right?
And he's fought less, though. He's 35 years old, but it's not comparable to another 35-year-old fighter who's fighting 4 times a year, right? Because he's had long layoffs due to injury.
Yeah, so, his last fight, it's Cejudo was 2020. Before that was 2016, and then he took a break from 2016 to 2014, and then from 2014 to 2011. So, in the last 10 years, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fights. This is going to be a seventh fight, right? So he doesn't have a lot of mileage on his body, and you can hear it when he's in the broadcast booth. Dude is sharp as nails, right? He's coming in.
One of the smartest dudes.
He's one of the, honestly, when you're breaking down fights, he's great to listen to because he'll tell you everything you need to look for. So whenever I'm listening to, breaking down fights, I'm like, all right, is Dominick Cruz on this card? All right, I'll listen to this one. But, he, like you said, he has a lot of movement. He was really bouncy. He moves in and out of range. He's kind of like a bantamweight Adesanya. You know what I mean? Because he's in and out of range. He likes to use a jab. He has a nice counter right hook. He likes that little lean back counter right hook. And like, we were saying, he cups left and right. He moves it in and out of angles. And then he's good at using his strikes to set up his takedowns because he's one of these guys that are also really, really well-rounded. When he's been doing it for so long at a championship level, you just know how to win fights, right? Because you learn, like, all right, if I'm taking on a striker, I need to employ this game plan. Taking on a grappler, I need to employ this game plan. So for him, he's going to switch back and forth between stances. So Casey Kenny, like you said, is really going to have to start with the legs, right? Start with the legs, slow him down. Maybe, it's going to be, you don't want to necessarily clinch with him too much, but try to get him worked, get some knees into his thighs if you're pushing up against the cage, right? He has, you don't want to really target a guy, but he has damaged knees, right? He's damaged goods. He had a lot of surgery. So if you can get those knees hurting early, that's an advantage that Casey Kenny can take into this fight. And yeah, man, that's going to be a fun fight as well. Those are 6 fights that can, top out any card.
I'm really rooting for Cruz, though. I got to be honest with you. I'm not going to give away my prediction yet, but I'm really rooting for him. I think, it would just be a really good story if he can get back to that title contention spot and get another shot. Because, again, I don't feel like he fully got his just due in the Henry Cejudo fight. I think he should have been afforded the opportunity to see that fight through because he wasn't out and he was standing back up when the fight got stopped. So,
yeah,
the UFC knows what they're doing, though, right? Like, there's a reason they're putting this fight as the main event of the prelims. It's the last fight, the last free fight that people are going to get to see right before a lot of people decide if they want to buy the card or not. So that fight's going to have a lot of eyes on it, and there's a reason that it's in the spot that it's in.
Yeah, it's a great prelim card. Breaking it down, you have the headliner. We just talked about, and I want to get into the 3 fights on the prelims that you guys should watch. Right, so the 3 fights that I picked out. The first one, which I think is going to be potentially fight of the night, is Song Yadong, the dude with my favorite name in all of MMA, taking on Kyler Phillips, right? Kyler Phillips is one of these guys that starched his opponent in Dana White's Contender Series. He has a pretty decent run here in the UFC so far, but he's taking on a guy in Song Yadong who's just so great striking. He has a knockout. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but he was breaking off the clinch, and he fired an elbow and knocked his opponent out clean. And that was one of the most impressive knockouts that I've seen in a while. Another great fight in this card, you have Izzy's teammate, Kaikar France, taking on Rogério Bontorin. Bontorin's a great Brazilian jiu-jitsu guy, but Kaikar France is coming in with 92% takedown defense. 92%, which is crazy high. And he has crazy knockouts. He's so much fun to watch. He's one of these guys that are going to fly around. And, his nickname is Don't Blink for a reason, because he'll hit you with spinning back elbows. He'll throw that spinning kick. He'll throw the question mark kicks. He'll throw everything. He's just one of these guys, super, fun to watch. And another teammate of Israel Adesanya, what's his name? Carlos Yulberg, right? He's debuting as well in the UFC. His last fight, he knocked his opponent out in Dana White's Contender Series. That was the one I watched live, and I was like, man, his opponent was out for a minute. It was one of those ones where you got a little bit scared. You didn't know if he was going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
And he's taking on Kennedy, the African Savage, Kuchku, which is a great name. And I think he's going to get knocked out, to be honest. But let's get into our fight picks. Is there anything about this card that you want to bring up before we get into our picks?
No, I think we hit on everything. I can't wait. Let's do picks.
All right, let's start with the main event. We got Israel Adesanya minus 230. Jan Blachowicz is the betting underdog at plus 185. Who do you see winning this one, and how do you see it going?
I see it kind of being a bit of I won't say a really close fight, but I do think that Jan is good enough, experienced enough, and has enough power to where he can put Adesanya in some scary positions throughout this fight. Ultimately, though, I don't think that he has enough. He's not technically proficient enough to get to Izzy without, getting clipped and sniped on the way in. I think Izzy's going to be able to keep the fight at the range that he wants to keep it at, fight from the outside and just pick his shots and wear down Jan Blachowicz. And so I'm going to go Izzy via 4th round KO or TKO.
Nice. So we're actually on the same page with that one. I was thinking 4th round as well. Like you're saying, Jan is in this fight already talked about. He's going to want to engage in the clinch and want to outpower Adesanya, which means he's going to have to be on his front foot, which means he's going to have to walk through the counter, the beautiful counter striking, right? Izzy has these amazing feints, right? His feints are probably the best in the UFC.
He had Anderson Silva biting left and right.
Right, so he'll get if he can draw a right hand or a body kick and snipe him with that left hook. I'm gonna go with 4th round TKO starting with the left hook as a knockdown, because a left hook, Adesanya has a beautiful left hook. Jan has a weakness to a left hook. We'll see how that works out. Right. Let's get into that co-main event. This is crazy betting odds. This is one of these fights where I saw the odds and it's almost like a boxing fight. Right, these guys who just have like plus 5,000, but Amanda Nunez minus 1,000. Taking on Megan Anderson plus 650. How do you see this fight going out?
I actually saw these betting odds as wide as she was minus 1. I think it was like minus 1250 was Amanda Nunez, and then I saw Megan Anderson at as high as plus 800, plus 750. So
yeah, 750 is what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, it's like a huge spread. I'm going to go Megan. No, I'm just kidding. I'm going to go Amanda Nunez via whatever the hell she wants. We'll go second round rear naked choke. She's going to take her down, get her back, choke her out. Just absolutely outclass her all fight. Why do you look exasperated? Did you have the same pick?
Yeah, that was my pick too. So yeah, I mean, no, you're good. I think she's just going to do the same thing she did in her last couple fights with GDR. You know what I mean? Just take them down and strangle them pretty much. Anderson doesn't really offer much off of her back, so I think she's going to start with ground and pound, right? She's going to start getting those elbows in there, like how she did with Felicia Spencer, and then once Megan Anderson turns around and turtles up, she's going to grab that neck, and that's going to be it. So that's going to be that's a pretty easy pick. But let's get into that third title fight, one with the most heat on it, right? This is probably the closest one as far as, you know, who's going to really win this fight. Aljamain Sterling, right? The Funk Master. He's plus 105, right? Taking on Petr Yan, minus 115. This is basically a pick'em, because if you look on Intertops, they have him as Aljamain as the favorite, right? So this is a pick'em fight. How do you see this one going, and who wins?
Again, we touched on a lot of the strengths and weaknesses for each fighter earlier. I think it's going to be a pretty close fight. I do think, though, that ultimately Petr Yan's boxing is going to prove to be a major problem for Aljo. I do think Aljo will get the fight to the ground, you know, in a couple of separate rounds, but ultimately Petr Yan puts him in enough tough positions. He hurts him a couple of times, and I want to go with the finish, but for some reason, the little bird inside my head is telling me that Petr Yan's going to win via unanimous decision, but I do think he's going to put a little bit of a beating on Aljo Sterling. His boxing defense, I don't think, is at high enough of a level to kind of, you know, avoid a lot of what Petr Yan's going to throw at him. The output is extremely high, and so Petr Yan via unanimous decision.
Yeah, that's a good pick. Finally have something where we get something different. I'm going to go with Aljamain Sterling. I feel like his ability to mix it up, right, and use his striking to set up his takedowns is really going to serve him well in this fight, right? He's a guy that moves pretty well. You know, he moves in and out of range, and although he keeps his hands down usually when he's, you know, far out of range.
Right.
You know, in his last fight against, I can't remember the name right now. In his last fight, you know, the guy throws a lot of leg kicks, right? The guy who just fought Frankie Edgar, and then he
Corey Sandhagen.
No, before the guy who fought Corey before. I'll pull it up right now.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Oh yeah, but so basically in that fight, right? Pedro Munoz, right? Pedro Munoz throws 1 million leg kicks, right? 1.5 million leg kicks. So a lot of those strikes, you know, he throws a bunch of them, which will set him up. Petr Yan's more of straight of a boxer. He's not a kickboxer, right? So he's more of a straight boxer. So he's going to have that typical boxing defense. And if Aljo is able to set up the high kicks, right, he's going to be able to set up his takedowns. And I feel like this is one where we're going to see Aljo take him down. And I see him getting choked out. I'm not sure exactly which choke. I'm feeling maybe a head and arm choke somewhere in the third or fourth round. You know, get a mount, right? Petr Yan's just tired, gassed, and he just gets him in a head and arm choke. So that's going to be a fun fight. Let's get into the next fight. We have Islam Makhachev taking on Drew Dober. How do you feel like that one's going to go?
I think that Islam is a beast. He's probably going to be able to put Drew Dober on his back, but I've got this feeling about Drew Dober in that he's come such a long way, and I do think he has an advantage on the feet. He's got a ton of power. His last 2 or 3 fights, I believe he finished via, his last couple of fights via, early KO or TKO. So I think we're going to stick with that trend. And because he's an underdog, I'm just going to go with him. I got Drew Dober via, let's say, second round KO via, I think he catches him with a straight right, drops him, and then finishes him. So TKO.
Okay. I'm going to go opposite on this one as well. I'm going to take Islam. I think his grappling is good. I think the time that he spent away from the sport's doing him good. I think I think Khabib's going to be in his corner as well. And we got to remember, right? Once Khabib's father passed away, who took the head of the table? Khabib took the head of the table. So Islam's probably now, he's kind of like the prime son, right? He's the guy they're going to try to build up and push. So I think Islam's going to come in. I think he's going to have a great grappling display. I think he's going to win a unanimous decision. Let's get into this banger of a opener for the UFC card. Yes. Alexander Rakic taking on Thiago Santos. Who do you feel like is going to win this one?
It feels like a really evenly matched fight. Both are extremely proficient on the feet, ton of power, looking to kill you with every shot. I'm going to go Thiago Santos because, like I said earlier, I feel like he needs the win more, and maybe that sense of urgency will have some sort of effect, though it very well might not. It's an extremely close fight. I'm going to go Thiago Santos via head kick knockout, cold, dead, in round 3.
Okay, cool. I'm going to say somebody's going to get a first round knockout.
Ooh, okay. I was going round 1 or 3, but I can't decide if it ends earlier, if they just beat each other up for a little while. It's I don't know.
Yeah, I think Rakic tries to close the distance, right? I think he tries to get him engaged in the clinch. And Thiago breaks away and breaking away like he did with Luke Rockhold, and he put him out cold, right? He'll do something like that, right? Or that was Jan Blachowicz, right? But he put somebody out cold off of breaking off the clinch. So I think Thiago's going to get this one. He has crazy hands. He likes to overswing so much where his body will almost fall a little bit extra.
Yeah, he'll lose his balance because he's trying to literally take your head off.
Every single strike, right? So I think Thiago is going to connect on one of those. Let's get into quick picks for the rest of the fight. Do you want to get a little more into the Dom one, or you just want to quick pick it?
Let's quick pick Dom. I'm going to go Dom. I'm just going to go Dom, UD.
Yeah, same. We're both on that one. Song Yadong versus Kyler Phillips. Who do you have winning that one?
Song Yadong, because I like his name better, and I'm going to take him via third round TKO.
Yeah. Abdel said, give me Santos. Kryptonite said, Jan won't gas. Young Assassin said, Jan is too fast, and he met Amanda Nunez, which is pretty cool. So
boys know what they're talking about.
Yeah. So we got a couple of UFC fans chilling with us. All right, so let's get into the Joseph Benavidez and Askar Askarov fight. Who do you feel like is going to win that one?
Benavidez, unanimous decision.
Okay, I'm going to take Askar Askarov with a decision. I think he's going to go ahead and get the fight to the ground. Kai Kara-France versus Rogerio Bontorin.
You go first.
I'm going to take Kai Kara-France. I think he keeps the fight standing, and I think he actually knocks out Rogerio Bontorin.
All right, I'll go with that too. We're on Team Izzy tonight.
Yes, sir. All right, Jordan Espinosa versus Tim Elliott. Who do you have on this one?
Tim Elliott, because I know who he is.
Yeah, I'm going to say Jordan Espinosa. I think he's coming in a little more consistent than Tim Elliott, right? So that's going to be a fun one. Carlos Ulberg, making his UFC debut, teammate of Israel Adesanya, taking out Kennedy Achukwu. Who do you feel like's into that one?
My boy Carlos is going to win because, again, we're Team Adesanya tonight, and I just feel like it's going to be their night.
Yeah, Team Adesanya. And then we got Sean Brady, 13-0, taking on Jake Matthews. Both guys submission specialists. Who do you feel like pulls this one out?
Not Jake Matthews, because he lost to Olivier Aubin-Mercier some years ago. So I'm going to go with the other guy.
Fair enough. Lavina Souza taking on Amanda Lemos. Who do you feel like gets this one?
Souza, because I like her name better.
Okay, I'm going to go with Lemos. I feel like she has a pretty good chance for this one.
Listen to Jonathan on these, by the way. Don't listen to me.
We got Alon Cruz taking on Uros Medic. It's actually a pretty close fight, close to a pick'em. Medic's coming in undefeated. Who do you feel like's going to get that one?
I'm going to go whoever you're not going with because it's a pick'em.
I'm going to go Medic.
I'm going to go the other guy.
All right. And then opening the card, we got Trevin Jones. Actually, crazy fight his last fight. He came out. He almost got starched in the first round, came back and knocked his opponent out. One of the best comebacks I've ever seen in a fight. Taking on Mario Batista. Who do you feel like gets this one?
Mario Batista, because one of my favorite wrestlers was Batista.
Hey, the great Dave Batista.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking at Izzy's one of his celebrations, and I was like, man, that kind of reminds you of the Dave Bautista when he used to come out and do the machine guns.
Yeah,
Come in. That was great. That was great. All right, let's
Izzy's
get
awesome. The showmanship is awesome.
dude, phenomenal. So better get into my parlay. I have a 5-fight parlay, right? I'm gonna go Askar Askarov, Dominick Cruz, Islam Makhachev, Amanda Nunez, Israel Adesanya.
Did you? Sorry, I missed. Did you have the Santos Rakic fight in that
I did
parlay?
not. No,
Okay.
stay far
Yeah,
away
it's
from that
okay.
one.
So contrary to where Jonathan's going, I'm going. I'm going actually Drew Dober round 2 KO or TKO over Islam. I saw that I have that at plus 1100, and then I'm going to go Thiago Santos KO TKO over Rakic plus 205.
Nice. That's gonna be a good one. So, guys, we're about 45 minutes away from the card right now. We covered everything we had for this card. Do you have anything else to say before we get into the next fight?
Just
Or
want to
before we get
thank.
into next week?
Yeah, just want to thank the people in here in the comments. This is our first show. We're going to keep this going. We're going to see if we can grow this. We both love MMA. Appreciate you, Abdel, Kryptonite, Young Assassin, anyone else that I might have missed that's been in here. I appreciate you guys. We both do.
Yeah, for sure. We got Samir Badesi. I know my cousin Kevin's watching as well. Appreciate you. I think my girlfriend's dad is watching too, so I hope he's enjoying that as well. So yeah, like you said, thank you guys thank you guys so much for watching. We're going to be doing this every single week before the UFC fight. So keep us locked on here on Walkouts and Knockouts today with UFC 259. I hope you guys have a great day and enjoy the fights.